And now there has been pretty nice time to digest in BC that what you saw in Finland when you were here, and you are safely all back in BC. And in this case, around that trip of yours, we decided in Finland to take a bit more kind of advanced follow-up what we have usually done around this kind of delegations, because that was so important delegation from our point of view, and so wonderful group of professionals coming over here, that we really are interested to see that what kind of consequences it will create, what kind of next steps will probably be taken. And of course, we also want to support you in those further steps as much as needed, as much as you think that it's necessary. And that's why we are now organizing that kind of series of webinars following that visit. And this is the first one of those. So that Jukka Matikainen from Nordic Trading House is our brand manager, and he has been collecting really well feedback from you, dear participants of the delegation, and I'm really appreciate that effort and time what you have been using to give that feedback, so that it is really excellent bunch of information what can be used together in order to take those further steps of the process, and also to learn when organizing next time that kind of visits. And this is my opening speech. I'm Lauri Sikanen from Natural Resources Institute, Finland, and I met you all here in Finland, and I'm also really happy to see that my friend Dominic is there on board, so that in program there is not that kind of special wrap up or summary at the end of this event named for you, but I would like to somehow warn you that we are expecting, waiting that kind of remarks after this webinar also from you, Dominic, because you know both places also really well, and you have been one of those masterminds in orchestrating this visit, as well as also of course Jorma and Ken. But be prepared. Is it okay for you, Dominic? It is. Good.
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. Now we are ready to move to the actual program of this webinar. Once again, welcome all, and we will continue so that our first speaker will be Leena Leskinen from Finnish Forest Centre, and Leena will tell us her overview and reflections based on the Joensuu Tour feedback and experiences during the trip. Leena, screen is yours.
Thank you, Lauri, and good morning to BC and good evening to colleagues here in Joensuu. I hope this voice is okay, that techniques works from here, from my home. And next thing is to start the presentation, just a moment. And then there was the issue of sharing the screen. Let's see, first the screen and then the presentation. Let's hope this works.
It works.
Thank you, Lauri. I can't see you, but I hope you see at least the presentation. So, some reflections. Very nice that you all are here again, talking with us about our experience and what we saw and talked a couple of months ago in here in North Karelia and in Finland. And I'm happy to tell something which reflections from your tour, and I have also seen already the results of your feedback survey, so some points maybe from there also. And then, okay, this is not working that way. No, page down. I'm looking for a page down from my, yes, okay, it's working. Okay, so first thing, I would like to congratulate you that you were happy to be at home just before the first snow came to North Karelia. This is 1 week later. You went back home, and this is me and my husband driving by summer tires in this weather back home from Ilomantsi. So things are quite different now in Finland. We have something like -20, -12 at the moment, more snow already than here in this picture. And of course, waiting for the Christmas time, a nice snow for that. And also not so much daylight. So the day here is something like 5 hours. It's sunrises after 9 o'clock and sunset is already 2:30. So, and this is in our place, and in Lapland it is even shorter. And so the Lapland timbermen used to have a saying in this time of year for the supervisors that I have been working from the dark to the dark, and I am not even sweat. So in these conditions, we try to work here, and remembering the nice summer and very nice autumn time we had. And yes, so when you were here, we were talking a lot and spending time in forests by thinking about the things. So why things? I think this was the one main thing you were concerning and considering during your week tour. And now again, let's think about why things. And so that's coming back what we were talking then. We had a challenge in more than 100 years ago in Finland, and now you maybe have a challenge in British Columbia. So you have forest wildfires, and we had people with a young nation and very poor people with low economic situation in very small and poor country in North Europe. And concerning all these talks and also with your feedback, I just in this presentation here, I make one possible interpretation about comparing the situation in Finland and how it can be seen in British Columbia. So I'm not telling any truth for you. This is just one optional interpretation and one reflection from all the discussions and things we saw. So going back to the Finland. So when we started the intensive forestry, we had a challenge that we really needed economic development for the young nation. And what we did a lot of investments and a lot of other policy contributions. For example, we made an investment for the forest industry. So we wanted to ensure the raw material for the forest industry. And that was for the wealth of the nation and for the economic development. And we did it. The forestry, forest management, everything was focused on that we get the sustainability, we balance with the cuttings and with the growth and yield of the forests. And also we wanted to maximize the growth and yield. And now just one possible idea about the British Columbia nowadays. You maybe can reflect the thing that your challenge at the moment is maybe to increase the resilience and to improve the protection of the communities against wildfires. So this is one point. And now, when we're thinking about this, and what we were talking about during our week, I mentioned once, at least, that we have to remember that the forestry is a very long, time-consuming, long-term investment and management. So you do your management at least for the next 50 years or even thinking about the next 100 years. It's not farming with having that you have 1 year planning and then you can change your plan. You make plans for 20, 30, 50, 70, 100 years or even more. So when you have planned something, for example, in 1950s, you have outcomes nowadays. So what we had maybe in Finland good resilience against wildfires. We have good resilience against some dangerous forest damages. And we have a good carbon storage when we're thinking about the climate change. But we have to also remember that these were not the targets during that time when actually the decisions for the forest management was done. So reflecting that to British Columbia, what you might maybe have as also coming other outcomes from your forest management in year 2000 something. I'm not predicting that, but maybe you will have increased growing stock and increased unallowable cuts. You maybe have new industrial wood use. You maybe have new value chains from the forests. You might have resilience against climate change. You had made some successful adaptation. And you maybe have the most developed digitalized forestry. This is something I want to reflect from you and want to, I think the way that maybe next development moves for the forestry is maybe done in British Columbia in next years. So how things? So my point here is that we had a lot of talks about the things are important to change the forest management, and you might have behind the idea you want to make changes because of the wildfires, you want more raw material for the industry or others. But however, now whatever has been kind of thinking behind, it's not one thing there behind it. The conclusion is that probably things would be something you want to do more in future. And here I have a picture about the thingy models, and that was something we had a lot of talks about also in the forest. And now again, what has to be done to get there? And from your feedback and reflections, I found it is building trust. So how could perhaps you can build trust for reaching your new goals in forestry? And there something which we had also a lot of talks about was this forest strategy and maybe policy instruments. And now when we talking about forest strategy, it's different than the company strategy. Now we are talking about strategy for the communities or for the society. And if I may say, company strategies might be easier because the decisions is made by the main shareholders and it's implemented by the director or CEO. But when you have society or community strategy, you have stakeholders there, and you have to do it all together with the other people. A little bit later, more about this. But first, about the forest strategy. It includes investments, incentives, information for stakeholders, public education for the public and stakeholders, and a lot of stakeholder communication, and that's needed for changing the forest management. And then there is also regulation, and I have here science-based regulation. And I think, of course, you have had, and you all, of course, have regulation in your forestry, and it's based on the science, and it's based on the sustainable forestry. But things changes, ecosystems develop, other things happens, and it's maybe again time for new research, new modeling, and new thinking about the growth models, and those will be the base for the new regulation rules, probably. And this is what I was talking about with Lauri before this event, was that we have done this all the time incrementally in Finland. And then you will need the technology, the machines for management and harvesting, and you will need training for the machines, machine drivers. And then the remote sensing inventory is needed also for information how to organize the management and how to use the machines every day around the year to make those investments also effective and beneficial. And it's also important maybe to have standards for your digitalization. That would help. And that's something from your feedback also. Do you notice that how the data can flow from the remote sensing to the sawmill? And there the standards are important. So the forest strategy process, some key elements about that. And I already said that it takes quite a lot when you have society or community forest strategy. You have a lot of decision makers. So you need the policy program formulating process where you have stakeholders and you have a stakeholder collaboration and communication. And with the stakeholders and public, you need the problem definition. You have to have a common understanding about what is the issue. And then you will agree about the main mission, how you do it. And when you have this, then you need the action plan, how in practice do it. And then there's implementation, there's different stakeholders, different actors, the industry, government, public, and the organization, forest owners, and so on. The different actors have different roles, but everyone should have engagement to the common policy. And that's important for the implementation. And how keep that somehow in track? So you need beforehand agreed criteria for the success. So when you have agreed about your mission and your action plan, you already also have decided how you measure that you are in track. And you have agreed the criteria for the success and how you monitor it and how you follow up. And what are the limits when you are not happy. And then you decide to do also some changes. And you even have a procedure for how to make, at what point you need to do the changes and how you do the changes again. And even when you have all this, and you have all the stakeholders, and you have the common understanding and agreement about everything, we have to understand and be prepared for that however some partners, for example NGOs, have rights to just one day that say that we are not in this anymore, we will disagree, and we are not supporting you anymore. You have to be prepared for that also, and how you keep everything, however, somehow going on track. And then, you don't have to actually see these small letters. It's just around here, important. And so my reflection, you had very nice ideas, and I think you have in mind what has to be done. And then I have some warnings for that if you have the common strategy and you have nice ideas and professional and science-based ideas how to manage forests, and then whatever you do, the public critics and stakeholder critics will come. And the point is how you manage the critics. So in here I have two tracks where I have learning by doing, and then I have this negative circle like ad hoc limitations coming all the time. So what would be, and I'm not saying that this is going on in Finland all the time, not at all, but this is maybe how we should try to go on all the time. So we have some management rules, and management changes and rules, those incremental we have done, they are defined by the professions, foresters. And for example, we have kind of rules, the same kind of management or practice for all the forest stands, like for example, the rule of leaving the same amount of the retention trees for the biodiversity to the clear-cutting area. So we do that at the operations. I think foresters are quite effective in this. It goes very clearly, very well. If we agree to do this, we'll do it, and it's there. And it's done, but then comes time for monitoring. Did it work? Did we get what we wanted with this management? And at the same time, and that's independent on the monitoring results, is the critics from the stakeholders. We have to understand it. The both comes. And with the monitoring that you have your criteria that actually you are successful, but however you will have the critics, you have to manage that. It makes it, I don't know, if your monitoring says that, well, we didn't actually made it, then it's easier to discuss with the critics so that, okay, we know that we didn't do it, we have to do something else. It's sometimes very tricky when you see that your monitoring says that everything's going okay, but your stakeholders are not happy. I don't have straight answers to that situation, but somehow you have to manage the conflict. But yes, then the critics comes public discussion. We are the open societies, we are democracies, people have opinions, we are happy they have opinions. And however, there happens again that we change the regime and we make the new management changes and regulations by professionals. So that way we somehow have it in our own hands, making the better forest management, trying to make the stakeholders happier, but we somehow can also operate in the forests. And that's important, that you keep your professionalships, that you can make the decisions about how we manage. The critics and stakeholders give us the the goals, that they want something different outcome, but we should be in charge when we decide how to get the outcome. So the another not so working solution is that non-professionals, stakeholders come to say on site that how it should be managed. Then you lost your professionalships. And so we trying not to get that point. We try to convince that we do incremental changes to make all the time stakeholders happy. And by that way, trying to manage the critics. And as we already talked about it, you get used to it, that you have critics all the time. So for now,
3 minutes, Leena.
Yeah, this is my last slide. So I want to advertise, just tell that there was the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry was asked for the forest strategy webinar, and it's coming. And Mrs. Kaisa Pirkola from Ministry is organizing it, and it's coming on March next year. And she just gave me the preliminary program, and it has opening words. And she was hoping also to have opening words from Canada or British Columbia also. So she will be in touch with connections to you. And then there will be by Mr. Erno Järvinen, the Finnish forest strategy presentation. Then me again, maybe explaining something about the earlier forest policies and investments, and how did we get to this point at the point. And then also the one presentation about the regional forest programs, because those are in the field. They are the important chain to the actual impact of the national forest strategy. So this is just to tell you that this is coming, and we hope, of course, as many as possible coming to the webinar, and of course to speak also from your side. But yes, Lauri, I have done my speech here.
Thank you, Leena. We have time for one quick comment or question at this stage, and then we will move on. Is there any, please?
Yeah, can I just ask one quick one?
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks so much.
The first one. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Great to see everyone again. Yeah, just a quick question. Maybe can I follow up afterwards? I know, so at the Provincial Forestry Forum, which is a sort of a group of 31 of us in the province, and there's many of us on this call. That's where sort of the we're working with government and various stakeholders on the sort of a BC roadmap or strategy. So it's great that there's one in March. For us, it's sort of more timely. We just had a meeting yesterday and just sort of struggling a bit. So maybe I can follow up afterwards with you just on sort of how to actually get started. You know, did you use a consultant, outside party? Do you have a sort of a team within government that we could talk to just to sort of brainstorm ideas? For us, it's sort of timely. We want to get on it now. But yeah, so if I can follow up afterwards just on how do we sort of get started, and that's sort of the next steps. We were struggling a little bit on that. So I appreciate your presentation, and I'll follow up afterwards if that's okay.
Okay, really good comment. Thank you, Michael. And is it so that Leena and Michael, you will be in touch about this and continue those concrete steps forward? Yeah, excellent. And then we will move on. And now we are all excited to see the presentation about those survey results, and those results will be presented by Jukka Matikainen, Nordic Trading House. Jukka, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Lauri. Can you see my screen okay and hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, excellent. So let's get going. So good morning to some of you and good afternoon to others, depending on where you are joining us today. So I thank everybody for setting aside the time to join us today. As some of you might already know, I have been newly appointed as the brand ambassador of Forest Joensuu in North America. So my task in this role are to foster collaboration among stakeholders between Finland and British Columbia, identify emerging opportunities for innovation in forestry, and build bridges between traditional practices and modern technology. So one of my initial responsibilities was to conduct this comprehensive survey to gather valuable feedback from participants of the Smart Forest Joensuu Tour. So we got more than 20 responses, which is a great result. Also, a big thank you to all to the respondents who put so much effort into being detailed when filling it out. So the core idea behind this survey was to tap into the knowledge of experienced forestry professionals who have seen how things are done in Finland and know how things are done in British Columbia. So we aim to gather their insights on what practices, solutions, and technologies they believe could be beneficial and applicable to the specific needs and conditions of British Columbia's forestry sector. So based on these insights, we formed a proposed roadmap and some follow-up activities. So I will present the survey results, which will take a bit less than 20 minutes. After that, Jarno Hämäläinen will take over and present the proposed call to actions. And then I think Lauri will show the roadmap that we drafted. So the first part of the survey focused on the trip arrangements. The overall visit was rated 5 out of 5. The registration, communications, and program were also rated very highly. People thought that there was a good balance of work and other interests, even though the score was the lowest in this section, but still very high, 4.5. So overall, I have to say that I have never seen these high numbers in any survey. So well done, UBC folks, Jorma Neuvonen, Ken Day, and Dominic Röser for organizing the tour in such a professional manner. So the first open question was regarding things that have been wished to be covered during the tour, but were not. So indigenous topics came up quite a few times in the survey results. Indigenous topics are not anywhere close to those areas where the tour took place, as they are quite far in the northern part of Finland. They are also far away from the mills and not like in BC, but let's come back to this towards the end of this presentation. So more field visits were wished for, including visits to sawmills and environmental non-governmental organizations. Educational topics were brought up, and more info about forestry programs at educational institutions was wished for. Then several MISC topics were brought up, continuous forestry, climate change targets and mitigation, stakeholder trust building, and more info on sampling, what is collected and how. And the second open question was regarding improvements of future forest delegations from Canada to Finland. Again, the First Nation aspect came up several times. Unfortunately, no Indigenous representatives participate in the tour, but many people felt it should be mandatory on the future trips. So I know that some effort was put into recruiting Indigenous representatives, but the timing just didn't work for them. The second big area of interest was to gain more understanding of local values, views, and culture. So, for example, views on the lack of biodiversity were brought up. So more networking and experience sharing were wished for in the call to action section. We have put a lot of focus on building these bridges to continue the experience sharing in the coming days, weeks, months, and so on. We also asked about what aspects of Finnish forest management impressed the participants the most. So strategy and policy related topics were a big area of interest. The national forest strategy and the policy and coherence amongst government, landowners, industry, and universities were brought up by many people. So I grouped a bunch of things under the title of collaboration and integration. Integration of the value chain and collaboration between all parties stood out the most. Integration in this context means the integration of markets for all types of harvested fiber. We don't have that here in BC, or in some extent we do, but not as in the scale of what they have in Finland. But for example, over here, for wood residues are left behind or burned in slash piles. So that's a quite common practice based on my understanding. So the use of technology was also an obvious area of impression. LiDAR is a big topic in BC at the moment because of major investments in LiDAR to increase the coverage. So the investment of more than $38 million was announced earlier this year. And some people were impressed that in Finland there is full LiDAR coverage. So also well-developed management decision tools and the level of integration of emerging technologies were brought up. So the last groups of impression were public engagement and trust, sustainability and resource management, and economic and social aspects. So to point out a few things here that stood out that were related to public support, respect, and social license. So forests are important to Finns, as mentioned earlier, but there is a common understanding of how they are managed and harvested and how their management is continuously improved. So in terms of sustainability, quite a few things stood out. Thinning, river logging operator training school, intensive fiber utilization, and the quality and quantity of data to drive forest management decisions. So from the economic and social aspects, I would like to bring up a few points that were mentioned. For example, private ownership, management of value at all stages of rotation, innovation ecosystem, and aligned stakeholders. So additionally, the circular economy, investments in it, and no waste mentality were mentioned. Somebody brought up that in Finland there is a good balance of economic, environmental, social, and cultural values. Then we ask what innovative technologies that were showed during the visits were perceived the most applicable to British Columbian forestry. So let's start with technology and inventory management. So many things were mentioned. For example, national level LiDAR, the inventory and stand growth and response information, MOTTI software, harvester forwarder simulator, and thinning equipment. So training and development related topics came up quite a few times. For example, thinning, the training approach, data collection from planning to the forest machine level, operator training school, and then again LiDAR. Commercial thinning and bioeconomy was the third area of interest. So commercial thinning, the use of small boilers, and the use of wood residues for bioenergy were mentioned. Integration and utilization in forest management was the second last topic. So many things brought up fell under this category, such as harvest machine chains, inventory and planning tools, vertical integration of product manufacturing, and active management of forest by using technology. Building trust and strategic approaches was the last broader topic. Building trust between scientists and experts and the public stood out. Also community energy systems and using the right equipment for the right situation were mentioned. The next question was about what practices and technologies the respondent would like to incorporate into their work. So LiDAR came up lots of times and many other topics, for example, an idea of the training school where thinning is taught in the operational level, commercial thinning, continuous cover forest management, and full rotation management strategies. Then a growth and yield combined with the value modeling and incorporation of value considerations at all stages of forest management came up. Support and operations was the last grouping I made. So support for private landowners came up, as well as operational forest inventory with a focus on value-based management. So the next question was, what are the impediments to incorporating similar practices? So policy and regulation and its complexity and incoherence came up lots of times. For example, the BC's public land ownership with tenure security issues is causing lots of challenges, as well as regulatory challenges related to thinning. The next major topic was economic and market constraints, which included, for example, the cost of implementing new practices, including the investment required for equipment and training, and low energy prices are causing challenges to the viability of bioenergy. Culture and social factors was the third major group of important things. The cultural differences make the implementation of certain forestry practices difficult. Operational and technical limitations are the fourth group. Quite a few topics were mentioned, for example, LiDAR data, availability of equipment and trained operators, and varied and complex geography. The last group included topics related to government's will and swings in priorities and focus and issues in indigenous consultation process. So the next question was, how can you help to make the change happen and how do you want to be involved? It was delighting to see that the respondents have a lot of willingness to make changes happen. Quite a few times, advocacy, promotion, policy and regulation related topics came up. Many respondents are going to promote innovative forestry practices and influence people making forestry policies and regulations. Then topics related to operational implementation and management were mentioned. For example, the development of strategic harvest strategies. Education and training was the next main topic. Ideas related to educational programs and starting and contributing to those were mentioned. Research and utilization related topics came up too. One of the respondents is willing to offer trial areas for practical experimentation. So I think this is definitely great news. The last major topic was collaboration and community engagement. So one of the ideas was to work actively with community forests to foster this change. So we also ask about willingness to participate in future activities, including webinars and online workshops face-to-face, and UBC forestry micro-certificate trainings. And almost all respondents answered yes or maybe. So based on the answers, all respondents are interested in receiving info about an upcoming Forest Joensuu 2025 event. So stay tuned regarding the event, which will be announced shortly. So the last bit of the survey was an open section where we captured stuff that were not captured in the previous questions. So the respondents wanted to send a big thank you to the organizers and the Finnish hosts. Based on the given inputs, the willingness to continue the learning and information exchange exists. So Forest Joensuu folks are definitely keen on this active communication happening, so don't be shy on reaching out to them. Some reflections were left too. For example, a need for a common vision in BC for forest management was mentioned. Some respondents mentioned their planned future actions and commitments. So for example, intentions to promote new options for BC forestry and apply learnings from the tour. So thank you very much for your attention. So it was truly impressive to see how much data and insights we captured during the survey. This is already very helpful, and it will definitely be used in the future to make this collaboration even more valuable to all stakeholders. So thanks again, and now I'm handing over to Jarno. Thanks. And if maybe a couple of minutes left, so I'm happy to answer questions or comments before we move on.
Thank you, Jukka. Do we have now comments after seeing that really good amount of valuable feedback what you have been giving us? If not, let's continue by Jarno. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I believe that you are able to see the presentation well. So also, good morning to everyone there in BC. It's a pleasure to be in touch again since some time, and my colleagues have been really, we have been looking at your responses, great responses from this survey, and trying to see that what kind of impressions you got during your visit in September here in Joensuu area. So actually my topic here, and I would like to comment a few things and observations we made, maybe which are useful and relevant for the further follow-up. And of course, I was trying to follow the similar kind of scheme, or I adopted the same scheme that Jukka presented just before. And from those responses and analysis we have done together with our colleagues, we have understood that there were few perhaps kind of gaps or desires which could be addressed at later stages. One of the fields was this building the trust and the strategic approaches, and maybe a little bit exploring more the current practices and the current, bodies and platforms we have available here in Finland. Also related to NGOs and having the NGO views on board, I could mention a couple of organizations here in Finland, NGOs, which are active in the forestry talk. So one of them is WWF Finland. They have been very active in a dialogue together with the industry and especially related to the certification schemes. As you may know, we have, two main certification schemes here in Finland, and the discussions have been ongoing for 3 decades at least around those schemes. Also, we have another, NGO, international NGO with the local representation in different provinces. It's a Finnish Association for Nature Conservation. So they are very much, active in the field of identifying valuable habitats and the local scale influence in the land use management planning processes and bringing up the natural values for the key valuable natural areas and helping to delineate the authorities to delineate out those areas before actually the intensive use of the forests or other, kind of land uses. As it was already mentioned here in this Joensuu area, the indigenous aspects are not so critical, or they are not present here as such. But I could see that for further exploration and maybe for the upcoming webinars planned, this topic could be touched by the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry of Finland. On a daily basis, we can see that Metsähallitus is the organization which deals with the indigenous peoples and possible upcoming conflicts. So these were some of the areas we think that could be maybe worth of, let's say, diversifying the view we were able to let's say provide during your visit here. Then looking at the let's say further engagement, I'm mentioning and listing here a few topics coming from the survey, and with the help of the colleagues from these institutions, we have been indicating the expert in the field for your reference for the future engagement and communication. So we see that the Natural Resource Institute Finland has still many things to provide, and especially these inventory and stand growth and response information, as well as inventory, telling more about the inventory and planning tools available, as well as there was also a kind of request an email exchange separately about your interest for the Motti software. And then there are other topics related to forest management practices, forest management research and thinning practice research, as well as, let's say, optimizing the harvest machine chain operations as well. And there was one specific topic was related to vertical integration of product manufacturing. So here we have indicated few resources from Natural Resources Institute of Finland, Luke. Then the second institution we see that Leena has been already, let's say, helping us a lot with these different topics mentioned here. But as said, still there's more to explore, and I think that you're working also currently with some of these topics actively. So Metsakeskus, definitely when we are talking about the developing of the forest strategies, and especially the regional aspects of the forest strategy, then Metsakeskus in this Joensuu area and Leena will be happy to explore together with you. And then when talking about the subsidy schemes which are supporting private landowners in forest management, those are also on Leena's desk and table, as well as building the trust between scientists and experts and the public. Then when it comes to more like technical matters, of course, Metsakeskus is the primary body here in Finland which implements the LiDAR-based management inventories here in Finland at the national scope. They have, of course, already also close collaboration with Argonaut related to data analysis, as well as forest fire prevention and fuel and risk mapping aspects. And Metsakeskus has many systems, forest information systems, which also integrate the inventory and stand growth and response information. And as we heard, we heard last time you were here, in soon, let's say data collection is getting more diversified in that sense that even data not only coming from the field and LiDAR for the analysis, but also the getting information from the forest harvesting machines and further, let's say, being able to produce products which serve forest harvesting operations. Yes, I mentioned already Argonaut. So Argonaut definitely and you were able to already see quite a lot here when you were on a visit. So they were kind of separate 3 different topics covered in a smaller groups, and those groups rotated. But there might be still more when coming to the more practical implementation. There's more to explore. And the 4th company or institution I would like to mention is the Beacon, represented by Marko Uutela. So there, let's say, added value is definitely on the commercial thinning and the bioeconomy side, especially when utilizing small boilers. Also utilizing the tops of tree tops and other materials for generating added value products. And then when there are some forest damages and there's need to see what are the different sources, optional sources for recovering the timber supply. Also, they are able to help you in that. I know that you already have very good collaboration between University of British Columbia and University of Eastern Finland, some exchange programs already there, and I understand that also this operator training school and operator training is quite hot topic at the moment there. And what I have understood already from the initial discussions, and also when discussing with the harvesting machine manufacturers, you have been finding their contacts and communication links to them. So they have been telling that you have been, let's say, been able to discuss further the topics. But I think the main take-home lesson from this comment from my side will be that this Finnish Forest Association is really the body which is fostering the culture and branding around the forestry and making forestry known by people, by children, and by professionals and the stakeholders, forest owners. And this is really the body which builds the trust between scientists and experts and the public here in Finland. So I think that's worth of exploring further. So that was all from my side. I would like to thank for this chance to exchange with you and joining this webinar.
Thank you, Jarno. Now we have heard all presentations what we were planning for this webinar session, and now we have about half an hour time to discuss together. And first of all, I would like to hear comments concerning these presentations and the feedback. Was there something which was really, from your point of view, really important, but somehow missing from the feedback, and all that kind of comments would be really welcome. So that who would like to start commenting and sharing feelings and ideas and thoughts concerning the visit and the continuation of the process? Alan.
Yes, thank you very much. As this group knows, I'm always a keener with my hand up first. So thank you for these presentations. It's really good. And what I've got from our trip there and from this is that there are so many connections we need to make. It would be good to find a way to further those connections. Like if I, from a selfish, totally from as an example, from a selfish perspective, Metsähallitus is very similar to the organization I run, BC Timber Sales, and to be able to find a way to connect with that group so that we can learn from them of how they deal with the Sami input, how they deal with marketing of national held forests. That would be an additional thing that I would really benefit of, just kind of contacts, even things like if we wanted to come and hire University of Eastern Finland students to come work for us, how do we go about those pieces? So those are it's just the whole trip and your presentation has just got my brain firing on multiple cylinders of all the ideas we can follow up on, and those are just a couple of them.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. And then Shane, you will continue.
Hey, maybe a quick comment. So I think
Oh yeah, sure.
to the point that maybe Jarno is the key person. So send an email to Jarno, and Jarno will find the right person to reach out to and then make the introduction. Or is Leena, Jarno or Leena? I think both are good contacts for that. Or do we agree?
Yeah, agree.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Yeah. Okay, Shane.
Thank you, Lauri, and to Leena and Larno and yourself. Great presentations this morning. Lauri, you look fantastic in that Chief Forester's hat, and by wearing it, you are a Deputy Chief Forester. Joe and Jeff will be reaching out to see if you can make some allowable annual cut decisions for them in a favorable way. I was not surprised by the survey results. I think the tour was tremendously well organized, and you can always ask for different. You can go on a holiday to Mexico, and you can always find something that you would have liked to have seen, or added a bit of a trip on the side. But I think what we saw gave us all a very good impression of what Finland's forestry commitment and operations are. Just a bit of an update for our Finnish hosts. Those of us within the Ministry of Forests have returned with a tremendous amount of interest in the tour being generated by our executive, and Al Powelson and I being the two BC Ministry of Forest attendees have been making presentations to our bosses. My deputy minister has had a presentation. We made a presentation to our minister and also to the Premier's office. Some of his key staff had wanted to get a sense of what we had found, and my great thanks to Dominic and others who put together a bit of a PowerPoint package. And Larry, I'm not sure if you've seen those, but we can certainly make them available to you so you see exactly what we gleaned from the trip and some of the major observations we had. Within those observations that have been shared with the government folks that look after BC's forests, which are quite different than the Finland experience with the private land and the Metsä group. The question that we've been asked is, so how soon can we do this? How soon can we start to experiment with or deliver some of this innovation on the ground? And I know Al Powelson and his timber sales group have been putting together some opportunities. I know Jeff with his company has been looking at some thinning opportunities. I've been talking about thinning a lot more in my conversations as chief forester as a means of doing a number of different things, like reducing our wildfire risk in some of our stands. We've also got habitat issues where the stands are too dense, and we're thinking of using that as an opportunity to create better habitat. I just was on a call this morning with our research group out of Quebec, FP Innovations, as you know, that Dominic used to work for. is trying to redefine themselves and trying to figure out how they might be more relevant within the research world. And there was a lot of conversation about the pulp and paper sector in Canada and how it's really struggling. It's trying to find a way to continue to be profitable. And I couldn't help but use the Äänekoski mill tour as an example. And I pointed out to them that, you know, here was this investment within Finland that had spent, I think it was 2 billion euros, 3 billion Canadian. I keep asking Joe Nemeth for the numbers because it causes me to think outside. I don't know what $3 billion even looks like, but a tremendous amount of investment on behalf of the company. And the opportunity that milling facility has to use the product that's generated. And I think that's the piece that Al and I really are trying to find a solution for, because we can do all the thinning we want in BC, but it's not as easy to get the thinnings to a milling facility or to a bioenergy plant, to a cogen facility, to a pellet plant, because they don't exist. And so it's that challenge of, you see Finland doing this because you've invested in your forest management ethos for 100 years or more. And we in British Columbia are just starting to figure out that we have to use more of our forest. So I don't know if I'm providing anything more than I'm just extending my appreciation for the continued relationship that we have with all of you to learn more about how it is unfolding in Finland and trying to use those learnings to make it work in Canada. I can say what's interesting is when I talk to people about the Äänekoski mill as an example, it's amazing how many of the industry people in Canada will say, well, they're not as profitable as they make it sound, and their numbers are pretty optimistic. If you were to look at it this year versus the last year's, you know, I'm not sure they're making as much money as they're telling you. And so you're always going to have, to Leena's point, you're always going to have the critics. And I don't look at those criticisms as devaluing what we learned in Finland. And frankly, I think it just shows that there's a lot of people looking at what Finland's doing and trying to compare the reality of it. And I think it is our responsibility as professional foresters to seek the facts and to really try and find those solutions where they make sense. So in general, I don't have any additional comments, Lowry, to the presentations. I echo my colleagues in Canada and BC saying, I think we need to continue to maintain this relationship. I think it's our Finnish colleagues' turn to come to Canada, to come to BC. We would love to host you and show you some of the work that we're doing. And hopefully by the time you can come, we'll have some examples of thinning taking place that you can look at and you can critique on our behalf and let us know how we're doing. So again, my deepest thanks to all of you for the tour, for the fantastic hosting you did. Lowry, I still talk about the sauna event that we had at that very special dinner. It causes lots of people to laugh, but I think it really does show the partnerships and the collegiality that we had throughout the trip. So thanks again, and looking forward to learning more.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, and I'm really happy to hear that there has been already this kind of really concrete steps forward, and you have been sharing that information and processing that among others, among those who were not here, and of course I'm really interested to see the presentations, what you have made, and because it also helps me to understand that how these things need to be wrapped up for the Canadian operational environment and Canadian decision makers and so on. So that, but it is really nice to hear that what kind of almost like a jump start there has been basically after this trip. So that I'm really happy, and of course really happy for that really positive feedback.
I need to apologize in advance for the presentation, Larry. Most of the pictures are of me sitting in harvesters.
Okay. Yeah, but that is I must say that is not very uncommon place to take pictures in Finland when we go to forest. So that it's so nice that those machines are so cool looking and colorful, and it gives that kind of nice touch of making something happen. Thank you. And then next is Dominic.
Yeah, thanks, Lauri. Thanks everybody that presented. I think that was really great, and a really great summary of of what we have seen, but also kind of what that means moving forward, and who needs to be involved in order to move these things forward. Also, really, again, big kudos to Jorma and Ken, who've really taken care of a lot of the practical organization behind the scenes, and I think the survey results are big kudos to that everything went really smooth along the way. And a really concrete outcome is already that we do have a sauna now at our research forest. So, we are making progress. First things first. We have our priorities straight. But I just wanted to note that I think a lot has happened since we are back, and I think this is really one of those efforts that I think we have some traction. I think there's the whole sharing the data and information with the right people, and I think Shane and Alan are taking care of that. You've heard already from Michael that there's the Provincial Forestry Forum that's taken up a lot of the strategy pieces. I think maybe from my perspective, where we have the biggest need for support is in developing, and maybe not developing, but improving the thinning models that we do. And because we're not starting from scratch, but we've had some discussions around using Motti, getting access to it. Maybe Lauri, that's something we have to connect with. And getting to simple thinning models like we've seen them in Finland, and we know that they have them in other Nordic countries as well. So I think that was really kind of the low-hanging fruit to enable a lot of the projects that you will be hearing about that are going on in BC, where we're looking at thinnings. And so I think that's really a great opportunity, combined with the bioenergy use, and so we have some projects with Steph in our research forest underway with combined heat and power, and I think moving forward, what we need to do, and Lauri, you have lots of experience in that as well, is translating what we've seen into our conditions. So that technology know-how transfer. I think we all know that the Finnish model doesn't work here. But how do we make these components work and fit into our context? I think and translating that is, I think, going to be key over the next few months to make sure that we don't lose traction. But I think from what I've seen since we're back, we have a WhatsApp group that's still very active, and I think there's some great momentum that we continue building on.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you. I really will somehow grab this idea of using Motti and developing that Motti so that it can be effectively used in BC. We need to get back in that, and for sure we will make it happen.
Sounds good.
And also that what you said about translating these experiences and these principles of this kind of good practices seen here in Finland, to translate them in order to fit the operational environment in BC. That is, of course, really important piece of this work, and let's see. One challenge will be, of course, that how we will finance the work, because it really requires work. But luckily, European Union also has renewed some practices what comes to the Horizon Europe funding, so that Canada is now recognized as a more important partner. It has been partner already earlier, but now the status has been updated in November, and let's see that if we can find some opportunities for collaboration, a bit larger scale collaboration funded by European Union in this topic. Then Jeff.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you again to everybody. Echo the thank yous. Really feel it's a privilege that you folks continue to engage us and help us and work with us and share your knowledge with us. So very appreciative of that. Really echo a lot of what Dominic said. He covered a couple of things there, but one of the things I think the survey results are really quite powerful. I may have missed it, but I'm interested to know how many people participated in the survey. So you always wonder with a survey if it's just the ones that are most passionate that participate, and then you get that alignment. But out of the group of 31 folks, did we get 31 participating or close to it? That would be one question I would have.
I think it was 22.
22. Okay, that's not too bad. That's pretty good. That was just a curiosity that I had. Just a couple of things for me. I really hope we can continue this process. I think there's areas we, certainly need to learn more about that will help us as we work on implementing change and adapting practices in BC. For me, the Finnish Forest Association is of pretty significant interest. Even just looking at that slide and, Finnish forests are there for everyone. That message is so simple, but so powerful. And it just creates an inclusive feeling for anybody that you give that message to. So there's so many nuggets like that I think are really valuable for us to be able to study and research more. I'd like to also learn more about forest management associations, how they're structured, how they function, kind of scale that they operate at, services they provide. I think that I can see a lot of parallels or relationships between forest management associations and some of the transitions we're going through in BC towards forest landscape planning processes that are bringing together a very collaborative table of people working on things that are, people that come from multiple tenure interests and stakeholder interests and Indigenous people. So that concept of forest management associations, I think, has a lot of value for us to think about in the future of BC. And the other big one is models, like the value versus volume, and being able to model that, to be able to demonstrate that. I think most, if not all of us, get that pretty clearly now, what that is and what that actually means. But for us to be able to socialize what that means with people in BC, with our fellow foresters and so on, that's a real challenge. And the more we have models and tools to be able to show what that actually means, what it means to manage with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind, manage over the rotation, realize more value, and both economically and otherwise, I think is so powerful. And to me, that's our greatest opportunity to root ourselves in significant change here. So anything we can do there, I think has a lot of value for us. So just a few things. One last one, I've always got lots. The combined heat and power plants that we saw, biorefining, those kinds of things. I'd be really interested to know more about what happens in the background, or what has happened in the background, to have those plants constructed, to have that infrastructure built. How has government participated in that? I'm sure there's been some incentives
And what does that look like? Because I think we're going to be in a place in BC relatively soon where we need to contemplate that more seriously than we have in the past, and that opportunity will be there. So again, I think, for Shane and Elle and others in government, that's probably going to be an area of real value as well. So anyway, I'll stop there. But again, thank you. Very good.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And then David.
Yes, Kitos for the presentations. I've got a couple of questions, one for Shane and one for Jeff, and then a couple of comments. So my question for Shane is, you said you made a presentation to the Premier's office, and back when we were still in Finland, we broke into those working groups, and I was on the policy, and I suggested writing a letter to support the MOU between Finland and BC, and I wondered if that is still a useful thing to do, or whether that ship has sailed.
It hasn't manifested itself into an action yet, David, and I would say that the 4 key themes that we worked on as a tour group are still relevant. I know that we're working with Bryce and Mike to see how we take that feedback and implement it into action, because as you pointed out, that action comes in various formats, not the least of which related to policy and pricing and an opportunity. I think what we've been trying to do is just organize ourselves in a way that we can fully recognize the impact of the tour, not forget about it, not put it aside and get back to all our other priorities that were waiting for us when we got home, and really make a concerted effort to move forward. The last Provincial Forestry Forum, and now, were you there, David? You were at the PFF, were you not?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. I think there was somebody there from the private landowners sector, perhaps, or I'm speaking out of turn.
No, probably Mosaic, Shane.
Oh, okay. We were definitely as a group talking about the need to be innovative and to try more of this for all the right reasons. And I know, David, that the private forest management landowners are probably in a very relevant and immediate position to do some of this. You've already been doing it, as have the woodlots and the community forest agreements. So there is evidence that it can work, but we just need to see how we can expand it beyond. That's a very long answer to your question as to whether a letter had gone forward or whether we need a letter, but I'm still interested in getting a sense of what those actions should be going forward. I was very pleased to hear the minister's office had interest, frankly, and as usual, once the minister's office caught word, Alan and I were off to the legislature to make a presentation. I think it was literally 2 days later. So thank God Dominic and others had put together a PowerPoint presentation in advance, because we didn't have a lot of time to go through the materials. But that alone, in light of what's happening in the province, in light of all the various initiatives that are being worked on, when the Premier's office says, we want to hear about Finland and we want to know what you're doing about it, that's a great signal to me. So to your point about has that ship sailed, I'm not sure whether there would be any need to further examine BC's partnership with Finland. I think if we promoted something or wanted something formalized, I don't think we'd have any resistance at all from our government currently.
All right, well, maybe we can sort of table that for some other discussion.
Just maybe one side comment on this. So quite a few people might not know that we have a memorandum of understanding between Finland and Canadian federal government. We also have MOU between Finland and British Columbia around forestry and mass timber. And then we have this latest MOU between the Joensuu region and Quesnel. So those are in place and they are continuous. So there are no set end date for any of those, based on my understanding.
Okay, thanks. And then this sort of a follow-up to Jeff, where he asked for some information on kind of how to set up the combined heat and power plant. And I think there's an opportunity here in North Cowichan for something like that. There's a brand new hospital being built. I think it's too late to have the hospital heated by bioenergy, but there's going to be massive development around it. And I'm wondering if that's an opportunity to get a bioenergy plant established to feed the offices. And I guess just that sort of segues into something else for the Provincial Forestry Forum. I think the UBCM, the local government representative, has a role to play in this education side of things. I've been involved with a couple of local governments doing strategic planning, and when I bring up forestry, I kind of get some blank looks, like forestry is really not on their radar. So I just think there's an opportunity there. If we frame it around economic development, community resilience, dealing with the fire and flood hazards that we've had, and the bioenergy. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Really good comments, and definitely this forestry and regional development, they are really tightly connected also in this Finnish forest bioeconomy, and really important to keep in mind and recognize those opportunities what there are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have quite many of us, or many of you. We don't here in Finland. We don't have that much hard stops at 9:30 p.m. anymore, but or 8:30 p.m. But I think that we need to start to wrap up now this discussion, and I would like to give now floor to Dominic to comment and wrap up this a bit from BC point of view, and give that kind of remarks what you have in mind, and suggestions, of course, for the continuation.
Thanks, Lauri, and I mean, I think at this point, really thanks to everybody, Jukka for putting together the survey, Lauri, Leena, and Jarno for presenting. I think it's been, like I said earlier, great summary for us. I think there was some really useful points that we have already been discussing. We will for sure share the presentations that we have put together. And I think we really are moving forward together. I think we need to look at those funding opportunities. It's great to see that Canada is now, it's not that Europe is now accepting Canada. I think it's that Canada made a commitment to support Horizon 2020 as well, which is a major game changer.
That is the right way to put it, really. Yeah.
And that's a major game changer for us, because I think it allows us to access some of those some funding opportunities moving forward. And I think we're all looking forward to the seminar or the webinar on the strategy building. And I'm excited. I think this is really, a step in the right direction. There's a lot of enthusiasm on our side, and I think collectively we can make this happen. So thank you everybody for contributing. And coming back to Nokia connecting people, this is the first time I think we have been together as a group. So the Finns brought us together again jointly. So it's great to see everybody. And I look forward to more and fruitful collaboration moving forward.
Thank you, Dominic. And Jarno, you have still in your slides this kind of roadmap or following events. Can you quickly show that so that we will remind everyone?
Yeah, thanks. Jukka actually has it, so maybe update it one. So Jukka, please show us.
We have those 2 webinars now. This was the first one, and then there will be 2 more webinars coming during this spring. And here we can see it, so that now we are here in this survey conclusion webinar. Then we have Arbonaut webinar coming in January. Yeah, sorry, there's 3 of them coming. So that then we have innovation exchange webinar, and then this strategy webinar concerning this collaboration between the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry and BC in this strategy work. So that those will be coming during this spring. And that kind of important topics I picked from this discussion after presentations, really this improving and developing those thinning models is really that kind of concrete work which needs to be done among scientists and practitioners together to make them practical. And then this Forest Management Association and Forest Association of Finland collaboration was mentioned by Jeff, and that is really something to be continued and strengthened. And then the CHP development is definitely something what can be supported from Finland, and we can tell a lot of different kind of experiments and experiences and benchmarks concerning the CHP. And then this ministry level collaboration and that kind of finding these opportunities for thinning cuttings in BC, what we can then evaluate together in the future, plan and evaluate together in the future. That is really good concrete suggestion. And then did I have something else here? I think that those were the most important take-home messages here, that those are the areas where we need to continue our collaboration. And Shane, you have hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I just wanted to let our Finnish colleagues know we will be also providing a bit of a seminar type opportunity at a couple of venues in the spring. Jeff and I think Chris and I are on a panel talking about our Finland trip at the Forest Professionals of British Columbia AGM. There's usually close to 2,000 participants that attend virtually and in person that are going to be part of that event. And then I'm speaking at an industry seminar in January. And Michael Armstrong, who is one of the leads of the Council of Forest Industries, has an AGM taking place in early spring as well. I think it's March or April. And I would not be surprised to see some reference to our trip to Finland being shared there. So we are expanding the knowledge of what we learned far and wide in many of these other seminar conference opportunities. So we'll be happy to report back and see what kind of traction we get after those events are concluded.
Excellent. Sounds really great. Thanks a lot. Now I think that we are 5 minutes late. I don't want to make you being late more in the coming duties and events in BC. Like Alan said, it is really a beer o'clock in Finland pretty soon. And thank you for everyone. This was really successful, really good webinar. I'm really glad that Jukka made this great effort of the survey and that we built up this event. And I'm really looking forward those coming webinars during the spring. I wish you all really pleasant, relaxing empowering Christmas time. It's coming pretty soon. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and thank you very much for attending this webinar and sharing your comments and discussing about the feedback. Thanks a lot, and take care. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Larry.
Kiitos.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.